Greetings everybody, welcome to my first narrated tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. I was asked to come up with a design for a tattoo flash involving a piston and cross wrenches. I know, I get asked crazy stuff all the time. You'd be surprised. So I decided to go ahead and give it a shot. Why not? What's the worst that can happen, right? As you can see, I'm doing digital pencils in the program is Manga Studio 5. Also now known as Studio Paint Pro, Clip Studio Paint Shop Pro, because the name wasn't long enough. I really like the way the pencils look in this program because I could never get them to look right in Photoshop. Of course, I use references. I can't remember what everything looks like off the top of my head. I get asked that a lot, and I wish I did. I'd probably make a lot of money at this. I thought while I was drawing the wrenches that if I added spikes to the ends of it, it would look cool. I'd never seen it done before, so I went ahead and ran with it. I was happy with the way the design was turning out, but the piston had to be bigger. In my opinion at this point, it just looked like a popsicle with a little bent stick at the end. So as you can see, I'm playing with it, making it larger. Somewhere along the line the word angry was thrown in, so angry it is. Let's go ahead and make it an angry piston. Why not? As you can see there, I've been playing with the face, trying to come up with something that looks angry, not too cartoony. There he looks a little miffed, but this was the first draft that I sent them and they liked it, so we went ahead and rolled with this design. Once the design got approved, it was time to tighten up the pencils and make it a bit more exciting. Working in layers makes things very easy. Another feature in Manga Studio Clip Studio Paint Pro is the feature that turns the pencil lines to a different color. I got mine set up for non-photo blue. Now I'm just playing around with the wrench, trying to get the proportions right, the length right. Something that comes in handy while using Studio Paint is the copy and invert feature, because I only have to draw one of the wrenches. Here I'm just reworking the piston head a little bit more, working on the expression, and as you can clearly see, I was struggling with the bottom part of the piston. At that angle, it just was not looking like I wanted it. So I went ahead and changed the angle to make it better. I'm still playing around with the design, moving the wrenches around and the piston, make them look a little bit bigger. I need the piston to look thicker. And due to my superior editing skills, I messed up the part of the clip in which I was drawing the piston rod thicker. So the video jumps a little bit. Reworking the piston head and you're moving things around. Once more, I just had to be, the piston had to be bigger. You can't have that thick base and then a little head. Just looks odd. Here I start playing with the expression a little bit. I'm always looking for those happy accidents, but in this case, once it started to look a little buck-toothed, I just went back to the second design that I had sketched in. It just never hurts to change things around, Once more, I've turned my pencil lines non-photo blue. Opened up a new layer, and I'm going for one final pass. I know it sounds like overkill, but it's a tattoo flash, so I wanted to have very tight pencils. That way when I get to the inking stage, it can be pretty quick and I don't have to worry about anything. All I have to do is just concentrate on making the line work nice and even. I changed the line work once more to non-photo blue. Then I print out the illustration onto Bristol board. Although I'm a big fan of freehand when it comes down to drawing technical things, even for a tattoo flash, I am big on ellipses, rulers, and templates. Those will be those green and yellow things you see whipping around at high speed on the video. Since I knew that I was going to be making just a plain uniform line and not working with contours or line weights, I used the Copic multi-liner SP 0.5. I need a nice even line since this was going to be the outline that is going to be used for the tattoo. I love using Copic multi-liners. I use them all the time. They don't bleed at the end of the line. Also, they lay down a pretty crisp line. And so if your line is not complete, you can always go back and connect them and without leaving any kind of ink blots or blotches. Once the inking is done, I usually color in with my Copics in grayscale. So that way I can either scan it or take a picture to get it back in the computer and then just play with the levels in Photoshop until I get the colors that I want. This time around, I decided to try something different. So as soon as I was done, I took a picture of it. I put it back in Mango Studio, Clip Studio Pro, and decided to try doing digital markers. The color scheme for this turned out to be green for the piston and silver for the wrenches. I did the color in layers, which allowed me to do something that I cannot do when I use markers on paper, and which was to color straight through and later go back and erase certain areas. I thought that was pretty neat. Also, I was able to retouch stuff as I went along, which is something you can't do with markers unless you plan ahead. My coloring skills are pretty basic. So I use the same technique in coloring with markers or when I do any coloring at all. And I keep it very simple. I use 3 shades from the same color, use white as a highlight. And if you look at the page, you will notice the color swatches I put on it. I use this technique on the piston and also on the wrenches. By the time I was done with the design, it was about 2:30 in the morning. I was bored, tired, said what the heck, and I went ahead and lost my mind with it and added that color for background. I really like sharing my artwork with you guys, and I have plenty more coming down the pipeline. So if you liked what you saw, please subscribe, like the video, and thanks for watching.